McLaren's F1 title defense has gotten off to a rough start, and it's exposed some major weaknesses that the team clearly didn't expect. The squad that captured both championships last season still hasn't won a single race in 2026, while its engine supplier, Mercedes, has been running the show across much of the grid. The new power unit regulations have completely shifted the balance, putting factory-backed teams back in control. On top of that, McLaren's own car hasn't hit the mark the way its previous championship-winning machine did. The qualities that pushed the team to the top of Formula One just haven't carried over into this new era. That struggle is showing up clearly in the standings. Reigning world champion Lando Norris and teammate Oscar Piastri have combined for fewer points than Mercedes sensation and championship leader Kimi Antonelli has collected on his own so far. While both McLaren drivers have grabbed podium finishes and Norris looked like a serious contender for victory in Miami, the team openly admits that a major jump in both performance and reliability is needed if it wants to get back into the title fight. The biggest obstacle standing in McLaren's way may be something it can't easily change: its customer-team relationship with Mercedes. For the first time since the partnership resumed in 2021, that status appears to be creating real disadvantages. It became obvious early on that Mercedes had a much stronger understanding of how to unlock the hidden performance buried inside the new engines. At the same time, several reliability concerns have raised questions about where Mercedes' engine division is putting most of its attention. McLaren only discovered how far behind it was in understanding the new power units once the cars actually hit the track. The team realized it didn't have the same level of information as the Mercedes Works outfit when it came to getting the best out of the engines. As engineers learned just how sensitive these new systems were, McLaren found itself scrambling to catch up. Even small setup changes could create huge effects elsewhere around a lap, leaving customer teams trying to solve a puzzle that Mercedes seemed to understand much sooner. It wasn't until the third round of the season in Japan that McLaren finally started looking like a genuine match for Mercedes when it came to energy deployment. Before that, the gap had been painful to watch. What started as a deficit of nearly a full second was gradually cut down to around half a second, then trimmed further to just a few tenths within a matter of weeks. Changes to the regulations also helped ease some of the toughest energy management challenges, taking some of the spotlight off a problem that had been causing serious headaches early in the season. But just as one issue began fading into the background, another stepped right into the spotlight. The focus quickly shifted from engine performance to engine reliability after McLaren suffered a nightmare double electrical problem before the Chinese Grand Prix, leaving both drivers unable to even start the race. That was only the beginning of a frustrating run. Norris needed a new battery in Japan shortly after receiving an updated version, then suffered a gearbox issue that forced his retirement in Canada. Later, another setback arrived when a problem with the internal combustion engine disrupted his Monaco weekend. After that race, team principal Andrea Stella was eager to point out that "We have had issues pretty much in all areas of the car," making it clear that not every setback could be blamed on Mercedes. Even so, McLaren twice broke curfew across back-to-back race weekends in Monaco and Barcelona while trying to investigate problems that engineers hadn't fully figured out yet. In Barcelona, the team also carried out a precautionary change linked to the installation of certain power unit components, adding even more attention to the situation. That move suggested McLaren may finally have identified the source of at least some of its troubles, though likely later than it would have preferred. The team has never publicly questioned the quality of the Mercedes equipment it receives, but this season has highlighted the realities of being a customer team in a brand new rule era. With teams still learning how to maximize the engines, integrate them into the cars, and unlock every bit of performance, factory teams naturally hold an advantage. Even with a strong working relationship, there are limits to how much a customer operation can know compared to the organization building the power unit itself. McLaren has learned the hard way that being a customer team comes with limitations that are impossible to ignore under the new regulations. One of the biggest discoveries has been having less freedom to fully integrate the Mercedes power unit into its own car design compared to the factory team. That gap may help explain some of the reliability problems that have surfaced throughout the season. It also affects how quickly McLaren can react to issues and how effectively it can unlock extra performance as development races forward. Mercedes high-performance powertrains knows the situation hasn't been ideal for one of its most important customers. There is no suggestion that Mercedes would ever intentionally provide an unreliable package. Instead, the company is working aggressively to understand the problems and improve the product as quickly as possible. Reliability setbacks have frustrated everyone involved, making it a priority area of focus behind the scenes. Still, the reality of Formula One is that customer teams will always be one step behind the manufacturer in several key areas. The works team naturally gets first access when it comes to car and engine integration, highly sensitive technical information, shared resources, and development timelines that involve valuable intellectual property. Those advantages are built into the structure of a factory-backed operation and become even more important when completely new regulations arrive. That close collaboration is exactly why manufacturers invest enormous resources into building their own engines in the first place. Mercedes has been able to operate as a single, tightly connected organization, allowing it to move faster and understand the new package more deeply from the very beginning. The edge it enjoys today is, in many ways, the reward for committing to and funding a full works Formula One program through a major regulation reset. McLaren expected some level of disadvantage, but it may not have anticipated just how significant the gap would become once the 2026 rules became reality. For years, the team believed it could continue competing on equal footing with the factory squads. That confidence wasn't unfounded either. McLaren became the first customer team to win a world championship during Formula One's hybrid era when it secured the Constructors' crown in 2024, then followed it up by sweeping both titles in 2025. McLaren entered the 2026 season believing there was little reason to expect a major step backward, especially after its recent championship success. But there was one huge factor that may have been overlooked. Those title-winning years came during a period when Formula One's engines were already deeply understood and locked under a long-term homologation freeze. With very few major changes happening to the power units, customer teams enjoyed a much more level playing field. That environment allowed McLaren to operate in a way that often looked remarkably close to a factory-backed team. That situation was never likely to last forever, though. A massive regulation reset is exactly the moment when works teams are most likely to gain an edge, and 2026 has highlighted that reality in dramatic fashion. In some ways, the current season resembles the beginning of Formula One's V6 turbo hybrid era back in 2014. When Mercedes surged ahead of the competition and held a clear advantage over its customer teams. That dominance eventually played a role in McLaren's difficult switch to Honda between 2015 and 2017, a period that proved far more challenging than many expected. The sport is different today, of course. Strict rules surrounding engine operation and requirements for equipment parity prevent manufacturers from enjoying some of the overwhelming advantages that existed during that earlier era. Even so, the complexity of the new 2026 power units has reopened a gap that many believed had become insignificant. Fresh performance challenges combined with reliability concerns have brought customer team limitations back into sharp focus. There is one guaranteed way to eliminate the disadvantages of being a customer team: become a works team yourself. That option has crossed McLaren's path before. A few years ago, when Audi was exploring ways to enter Formula One, discussions included the possibility of a factory partnership with McLaren. However, Audi's interest involved owning the team, and McLaren ultimately chose not to pursue that route. Meanwhile, rival Red Bull has taken a very different path and created a model for independent teams looking to control their own future. The organization built Red Bull powertrains from the ground up, turning it into a full engine operation before securing support from Ford. That partnership is now developing Red Bull's first fully in-house Formula One power unit, a bold move designed to reduce reliance on outside suppliers and give the team greater control in future regulation cycles. Red Bull's engine project has wasted no time making headlines. The program scored its first podium in Canada last month, secured a front-row qualifying position in Monaco, and has looked surprisingly competitive right out of the gate. For a project that many expected would need years to find its footing, those early results have certainly grabbed attention across the paddock. The story became even more interesting when the FIA's evaluation process reportedly ranked the Red Bull Ford project as having Formula One's strongest internal combustion engine among manufacturers eligible for upgrades this season. That assessment sparked plenty of discussion throughout the sport and added even more intrigue around a program that was already being watched closely. However, creating an engine operation from scratch is an enormous challenge. Red Bull's effort required huge financial resources, years of planning, and a major commitment to infrastructure and personnel. For McLaren to follow a similar path, it would likely require substantial investment from shareholders or support from an automotive partner willing to share the burden. Either option would mark a major strategic shift for the team and change the direction of the organization for years to come. That's why McLaren is not rushing towards such a move. While CEO Zach Brown acknowledged in Monaco that the team will likely evaluate its options when Formula One introduces its next generation of simpler engine regulations around 2030 or 2031, McLaren's current plan remains clear: continue as a Mercedes customer team and strengthen that partnership moving forward. In the short term, that means finding ways to work more effectively with Mercedes' high-performance powertrains and improving communication, preparation, and problem-solving processes. McLaren is conducting a detailed review of how it collaborates with HPP, searching for ways to identify potential issues earlier and avoid surprises once the cars reach the track. As Andrea Stella explained, the goal is to retain the standards of a championship-winning partnership. But there's another important piece to this story that can't be ignored. Not all of McLaren's struggles can be traced back to the engine. The team is also dealing with weaknesses in its own car package. Compared to previous seasons, the car appears to be missing some aerodynamic performance in medium-speed corners, an area that used to be a major strength. On top of that, inconsistent tire understanding has left the drivers battling for grip in situations where rivals seem far more comfortable, creating another challenge in an already difficult season. When everything comes together, McLaren can still look surprisingly close to Mercedes' pace. Races like Miami and Barcelona showed that the team is capable of fighting near the front when conditions suit the car. In fact, Norris grabbed victory in the Miami sprint while Mercedes was still trying to fully dial in its package earlier that weekend. Those flashes of speed proved McLaren hasn't lost its potential, even if consistency remains a major issue. However, the team's weaknesses were exposed in dramatic fashion at Monaco, delivering a harsh reality check. That event highlighted problems that had been lurking beneath the surface and raised fresh questions about where the car truly stands compared to its biggest rivals. Before Monaco, Andrea Stella had considered low-speed corners to be one of McLaren's stronger areas. After that weekend, though, that belief became much less certain. Even if the car remains reasonably competitive from an aerodynamic standpoint in slower sections, the mechanical side appears far less convincing. The car has often been difficult to drive, with Norris frequently speaking about the challenges behind the wheel. Stella has also identified tire management as a critical area for improvement, with getting the tires into the correct operating window now sitting high on the team's development priority list. The first signs of McLaren's latest problem appeared in the colder conditions at Canada on a smooth track surface, but the issue became impossible to ignore in Monaco. There, the team struggled to generate enough tire temperature to unlock grip, a problem that was linked to the car still carrying some of the traits that once made it exceptionally gentle on its tires. What used to be a major advantage now appears to be creating challenges under certain conditions. Things became even more confusing in Barcelona. Early in the weekend, Norris worried that McLaren's traditional tire degradation advantage had vanished, while Piastri endured a surprisingly difficult race. Yet Norris delivered a much stronger performance in the Grand Prix, showing that the car can still be highly competitive when everything falls into place. Miami, another race held in hot conditions, also demonstrated flashes of the tire management strengths that helped McLaren rise to the top in previous seasons. The bigger issue seems to be consistency. McLaren no longer appears able to access its tire performance as easily or as predictably as before. The sweet spot is much narrower, making it harder to get the car operating at its best. There also appears to be a deeper challenge involving how the car's overall vehicle dynamics interact with the tires, creating behavior that engineers are still trying to fully understand. One particularly interesting factor involves the slightly smaller Pirelli tires introduced under the current regulations. These tires can provide inconsistent grip during the transition from heavy braking into corner entry and through the turn itself. Right now, the McLaren appears especially sensitive to that behavior, leading to lockups, reduced confidence, and moments where grip simply isn't there when the drivers need it most. In the end, Norris believes the reality is straightforward. McLaren simply isn't operating at the level it reached in recent years. The team once developed a car that could perform almost everywhere, across almost any condition. Now, weaknesses and unpredictable traits continue to hold it back, even on weekends when the pace looks promising. The speed is still there, but the complete package that made McLaren a championship force remains just out of reach. For now. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with other F1 fans. What do you think is McLaren's biggest problem right now? Engine limitations, tire performance, or the car's overall design? Let us know in the comments below.